The collapse never announces itself. It does not arrive with sirens or official declarations. It begins quietly. A bank limit here, an empty shelf there, a currency that buys less this month than it did last month. And one day, people wake up and realize something fundamental has broken. The question is not whether economic crises happen. History answers that clearly. The real question is this: when the system fails, will you understand what's happening, or will you be reacting too late? Because in every major collapse, from ancient empires to modern economies, there were people who lost everything, and people who survived, adapted, and quietly emerged stronger. What separated them was not luck. It was preparation, awareness, and an understanding of how collapses truly unfold. Welcome to the Money Lens Media, where you can decode the money and history and design your future. Today, we're going to explore something most governments, banks, and financial institutions never teach openly: how economic collapses really happen, what they look like from the inside, and more importantly, how individuals throughout history have survived them. Not with panic, not with predictions, but with strategy. This is not about fear, it's about clarity. Because economic collapses are not rare accidents. They are recurring features of financial systems built on debt, confidence, and power. And once you recognize the pattern, you stop being surprised by history and start preparing for it. To understand how to survive an economic collapse, we need to begin with an uncomfortable truth. Most collapses do not start with poverty. They start with prosperity. Every major crisis begins during a period of growth, optimism, and confidence. When credit is cheap, when assets are rising, when risk feels distant. The Roman Empire expanded its currency supply to fund wars and public spending. The Weimar Republic printed money to pay debts and stabilize society. The United States in the 1920s fueled markets with easy credit. Japan in the 1980s inflated real estate and stock prices beyond reality. The global economy before 2008 ran on leverage disguised as innovation. Different eras, same structure. Debt expands faster than real productivity. Asset prices rise faster than incomes. And confidence becomes the fuel holding everything together. Because modern economies do not run on gold or resources. They run on belief. Belief that money will hold value. Belief that banks are solvent. Belief that governments can manage the system. And belief is fragile. The moment confidence cracks, the collapse begins, even if the numbers still look fine. When economies fail, they fail in stages. The first stage is denial. Officials insist the problem is temporary. Media reassures the public. Markets fluctuate, but explanations sound calm. In 1929, politicians said the stock market crash was a healthy correction. In 2007, central banks called the housing crisis contained. In countless currency crises, governments promised stability days before devaluation. Denial buys time, but it also delays preparation. The second stage is liquidity stress. Banks restrict withdrawals. Credit tightens. Businesses struggle to roll over debt. This is where collapses begin to affect everyday life. Paychecks arrive late. Loans are suddenly unavailable. Small businesses fail first, quietly, without headlines. This is the moment history shows a critical divide. Those who understand what liquidity means act early. They reduce dependency on fragile systems. They increase flexibility. They preserve optionality. Those who trust official reassurances stay exposed because the system has not collapsed yet. Then comes the third stage, currency erosion. This does not always look like hyperinflation. Often it's slower and more deceptive. Prices rise, savings lose purchasing power, wages lag behind costs. People feel poorer even if their bank balance looks the same. In Germany during the early 1920s, professionals were still employed, but their salaries became meaningless. In Argentina, middle-class families watched savings evaporate without banks technically failing. In Zimbabwe, wealth disappeared long before cash became worthless. This is when collapse becomes psychological. Trust in money breaks. And once trust in money breaks, behavior changes. People stop saving. They spend quickly. They speculate. They hoard real goods. The system begins to cannibalize itself. The final stage is restructuring, either through reform, default, or reset. Debts are erased or inflated away. Institutions are rebuilt. A new system emerges, but only after massive wealth transfer. Because collapses are not equal opportunity disasters, they redistribute wealth. Upward, sideways, and sometimes completely out of reach. So how did people survive these moments? Not by predicting exact dates, not by timing markets perfectly, but by understanding three historical principles. The first principle is independence from fragile promises. Throughout history, the most dangerous asset in a collapse is not stocks or real estate. It is dependence. Dependence on a single employer. Dependence on a single currency. Dependence on institutions that require stability to function. In the Great Depression, farmers with land and skills survived better than urban workers with cash savings. In hyperinflations, tradespeople outperformed professionals paid in fixed salaries. In banking collapses, those with diversified access to value endured longer. Survivors did not reject systems entirely. They reduced single points of failure. They understood that when trust disappears, flexibility becomes survival. The second principle is real value over paper value. During stable times, paper claims feel solid. Bank balances, bonds, pensions, contracts. During collapse, those claims depend on enforcement, and enforcement depends on power. History shows that tangible, productive, or scarce assets retain value longer, not because they are magical, but because they exist outside promises, land that produces food, skills that generate income regardless of currency, tools, networks, and knowledge. Even gold's role historically was not mystical. It was trust-independent. When institutions failed, people reverted to what required the least explanation. The third principle is psychological discipline. This is the least discussed and the most important. Collapses amplify emotion. Fear spreads faster than inflation. Rumors move markets before facts. Panic destroys wealth more efficiently than policy. Those who survived had one advantage. They did not follow the crowd. They did not chase collapsing currencies or speculative bubbles born from desperation. They conserved energy. They acted deliberately while others reacted emotionally. This is why many fortunes are quietly built during crises, not through exploitation, but through patience. Because collapse creates asymmetry, most people are forced to sell at the worst possible time. Those with liquidity, skills, or stability acquire assets when fear peaks. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Modern economies are more complex, but not more stable. Today's financial system is faster, more leveraged, and more interconnected than any in history. Debt levels are higher than ever. Governments rely on perpetual borrowing. Central banks manage confidence more than value. Inflation is no longer an accident. It is a policy tool. Wealth inequality is not a side effect. It is a structural outcome. Markets respond less to fundamentals and more to liquidity injections. Savings earn less than inflation. Asset ownership defines survival more than employment. This does not mean collapse is guaranteed tomorrow. It means fragility is permanent. The modern crisis is not a single event. It is a slow erosion of purchasing power, trust, and mobility. And this changes what preparation looks like. Surviving an economic collapse today does not mean hiding in isolation or abandoning society. It means understanding leverage, not just financial, but personal. Income sources that are adaptable. Skills that remain valuable across systems. Exposure to assets that do not rely entirely on monetary expansion. It means questioning narratives. When inflation is called temporary, ask who benefits from delay. When debt is framed as harmless, ask who holds it. When markets are celebrated, ask who owns them. Most importantly, it means shifting mindset. From growth at all costs to resilience. From prediction to preparation. From blind trust to informed skepticism. History shows that collapses are not the end of civilization. They are transitions. Painful, unfair, but also revealing. They expose weaknesses hidden during prosperity. They reset power structures. They punish dependency and reward adaptability. The tragedy is not that collapses happen. The tragedy is that people are taught to believe they never will. So if there is one lesson history repeats relentlessly, it is this: economic systems change, currencies fail, institutions restructure. But those who understand money beyond headlines and textbooks do not disappear with them. They adapt, they endure, and often they quietly shape what comes next. Because history does not repeat itself, but it always leaves clues. If you want to see money not as numbers on a screen, but as a story of power, psychology, and survival, consider subscribing. This is Money Lens Media.